just keelhauled. So let's see him.
Chambers to let the process.
When they absolutely are not, that's what quality is totally up to the
God, this is fucking aggravating as fuck. All right, hey guys, thanks for being patient. Starting off here, interesting day happening. Oh man, across politics. And what do we have most of all? The Trump housing bill. Lord have mercy. The bipartisan housing bill. That, look, honestly, we got to look at Caroline Levitt. So, just more proof.
We're the cast of Jackass Best and Last.
Just more proof that Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about
Inflation back
anyone
to record highs.
in
President Trump
the government. Sorry, anyone in the country except for himself. And that was demonstrated yet again today when we had
great meeting, and we're very proud of
Caroline Levitt sit there and claim that Donald Trump was in support of the housing bill. Donald Trump has always supported the things in the housing bill. And that Donald Trump is really the one behind the housing bill. This is unbelievably okay. This is 7:49 p.m. yesterday. 7:49 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, so almost 10 o'clock on this is unbelievable. Almost 10 o'clock. Almost 10 o'clock in Washington, D.C., Eastern Standard Time, you have Caroline Levitt posting this. Tomorrow at 12 p.m. on Capitol Hill, President Trump will sign into law a 21st Century Road to Housing Act. one of the most significant pieces of housing affordability legislation in American history. The bipartisan bill includes policies long championed by the president. It cuts unnecessary red tape, helps increase housing supply, and limits the ability of large institutional investors, always the enemy of Donald Trump, to purchase single-family homes. As the president has said, homes should be owned by American families, not corporations. Such bullshit. President Trump promised to lower housing costs, and by golly, he's delivering, making it easier for every family to achieve the American dream of home ownership. Tomorrow's historic bill signing is another promise made, another promise kept. Well, ding dong, ta-da, hello, did he sign the bill? Nope, 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 nope. He pulled out of it. They were literally putting the chairs together for this signing ceremony on the Capitol, at the Capitol this morning, just a few hours ago. When at the last minute, they learned that Donald Trump had, in fact, decided to cancel the bill at 8:26 a.m. 8:26. So she's at 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, she's tweeting that it's all this stuff about Trump going to sign this great bill. And then, I don't know, barely 8 hours later, he's saying, nah, ain't going to do it. Today's housing news conference and signing is hereby canceled until such time as we pass the desperately needed, it's not needed, it's illegal, I'll explain in a moment, Save America Act, which I consider to be a national emergency. Oh, well, if you consider it to be a national emergency, it must be. Thank you for your attention to this matter, exclamation point, President DJT. I mean, when you look at one compared to the other, is there ever been, the one good thing Donald Trump does is he makes his people look like idiots and treats them like shit. Okay. You know, I haven't read the housing bill in its entirety. I mean, it has some good stuff in it. And actually I'm going to talk about that in a second here. There was some stuff in there about institutional investors and so forth. This is interesting because, you know, the stuff about institutional investors, the stuff about making it easier to build, all that stuff has some merit. But the fundamental thing, the fundamental condition that is making it difficult for people to realize the American dream of home ownership, you know, this isn't the days of the boomer generation in the 50s, 60s, 70s, hell, even the 80s, where, you know, like houses are like, you can get a good house for less than six figures, where mortgage rates are reasonable for the most part, where they have all kinds of programs to assist and facilitate home ownership. Now everything is expensive. The interest rates now are like 6 or 7%, if I'm remembering correctly, which leads to, we just talked about this the other day on another stream, which over the life of a 30-year mortgage at $500,000 is something like an extra $300,000-$400,000 that a person has to pay. And, you know, it's the economic conditions set in place by the boomer generation, by the Republicans, who, by the way, every time pretty much there, you know, over the past 50 years that there has been a recession, a downturn in the economy, it's Republicans. Okay. It's Republicans. There's this myth out there in the world that Republicans are better at the economy than Democrats, but that's not true. It's just, it's not based in facts or evidence. So having, you know, half the governments be under crappy Republican economic administration since World War II, having the national debt go up since World War II, all of these things affect interest rates. Having this stupid Iran war affects interest rates. And, you know, everything is expensive now. Now, I think those economic conditions are more important, but there is also a significant reality that the institutional investor thing is an issue. Now, you'll hear people say, and I heard it today, that on one of these programs that, well, institutional investors don't affect the overall housing supply, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's not correct. It may be correct overall, on like an overall level, like if you take the 100% of the country, but it is absolutely false and completely wrong when it comes to the fastest growing areas in the country, which of course institutional investors target. And they target it in a way that it's very parasitic. And they go after those parts of the country that are growing the fastest, where the housing supply is needed the most. And they jump in there and they make it so that people hold on one second. I just have to respond to something. When you look at areas, let's go through some of the cities. Okay. So Atlanta is really the highest concentration market. Large institutional investors own 30% of single family rentals there, meaning they own 30% of single family homes. Jacksonville, 25%, Charlotte, 25%. And then you look at all these in Tampa, Phoenix, Dallas, Houston, and institutional investors tend to target affordable housing markets, fast growing metros, areas with strong rental demand, and Sunbelt states with landlord friendly laws, meaning ones that fuck over tenants. Okay. So the institutional investor thing does matter. Okay. So we have someone, not Hildy Johnson. I appreciate you. Hildy, I used to, not Hildy Johnson. I used to work for, I've done so much mortgage, like litigation back when I was a trial lawyer. I used to represent Nation Star. I used to represent Lehman Brothers. I used to represent, I sound like a fucking vulture saying this. I used to represent Bank of America, Wells Fargo in New Mexico, which was a trip. I mean, I remember being in court one time and some guy, he was a crazy person. He hadn't paid his loan in like 7 years. Obviously the banks did screw up a lot and mortgage servicers did make mistakes, but by and large, other economic conditions affected this. But anyway, this guy, I'm sitting there and there's it's a double wide trailer, a $70,000 loan. And there was people from there's attorney from Jones Day and all these New York law firms. It must've been at $1,000 a minute on this court hearing. Anyways. So 6.5% is the mortgage interest rate, which is a lot over the life of a loan. Hey, Brandy, it's good to see you. Trina and everybody, Tyler, everybody who comes to see me, I appreciate you so much. So, yeah, I mean, you're looking at, he literally this is something that is supposed that it was supposed to be. I mean, look at Caroline Levitt, look at her trying to push this out. Look at them saying this and just literally pull the rug out from underneath, and in order to use it as leverage for the Save America Act. This is such a prototypical Trump thing to do. Okay. This is you might as well rename this to Trump Wednesday, because the Save America Act. So he's saying he's not going to sign this housing bill, despite Caroline Levitt saying it was his idea and it's all great and it's all wonderful. All right. Because he wants to sign the Save America Act. And so the Save America Act is essentially an illegal effort to federalize elections and rig them in favor of Republicans, and to disenfranchise minorities. And not just minorities, but minorities, people who have disabilities, the elderly, and really that is only going to favor Donald Trump. And the reason why he wants to do that is because there's a big giant iceberg of bad shit that he's been doing, and he doesn't want to be investigated. All right. The corruption is through the roof. We're involved in a stupid war. We have Jared Kushner, who has billions of dollars of conflicts of interest. So does Steve Witkoff, involved in this situation, trying to negotiate the end of the war. You have this situation. I mean, there is corruption like it just in every single direction. So many crazy things happening. Pardons being purchased. You can't even like. It's hard to even get your hands on it. And so that's what he's trying to do. And this comes on the heels of the Save America Act. We had this book by Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan called Regime Change, where it became clear that Donald Trump, and it's them reporting on Donald Trump, that the reason Donald Trump ran for office again, not to become president, but to avoid prison, but also, of course, to make money and steal, courtesy of the Supreme Court. So Congress does have to. Okay, so one of the things that people, I did have to say mention in the comments, was about like how, yeah, I'm sure it's a great book. Is that because this housing bill passed by sufficient margins to make it veto-proof majority, that maybe if they just don't do anything, it becomes law. But that would generally be true, but there is a couple technical things that Mike Johnson can screw up, and that he has to actually go and present it to Donald Trump. So there's some formal things that Mike Johnson controls that if he doesn't do, even though it has, I believe, a veto-proof majority, it will not become law. So that, I mean, I'm sure he's going to do what Donald Trump wants, but we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, you're in a situation where Donald Trump is trying to, is screwing over America, screwing over the younger generation, screwing over people looking for homes. And this is like fundamental baseline unfairness and a problem in our economy. And it's not just like the American dream of home ownership. It's the fact that, your home is typically a foundational piece of your ability to retire at a reasonable age, and your investments and your savings, because that's how you build equity, right? And conversely, if you're not building equity, what are you doing? You're renting. You're throwing money into a furnace every month. And you're building equity for some corporation that owns the rental that you're paying for. And so it is, when you combine student debt, when you combine lack of home ownership, okay, you look at those things together, then you have this massive weight bearing down on huge portions of our country, the younger generations. When I say younger, I mean like Generation X and younger. It doesn't necessarily have to be like people in their 20s. And these are not just, student loans are not dischargeable in bankruptcy. You can't declare bankruptcy to get rid of a student loan. So they get screwed coming and going, right? And then we have Trump, this with the big ugly bill, which was the greatest transfer of wealth in a single piece of legislation from the young to the old, and from the poor to the rich in human history, which just accelerated and continued it. All right. Now we are at such an important inflection moment. And this plays in with the larger economy. And I actually wanted to show you guys something about, because I did post a video yesterday. Let me see here. Just a couple graphs about, well, let's look at this. Okay. So let's go back. When you look at income inequality. All right. So this is like so we still have, this is an important graph here too, about the unsold new homes that are piling up. Hold on one second. I gotta respond to this. Okay, so we do have, new home sales fell 7.3% in May to a 580,000 annual rate, while supply jumped to 10.3 months, tied with mid-2022 for the most since the 2008 to 2009 housing bust. With mortgage rates still elevated, builders are sitting on a growing glut. I think this indicates it's less, it is a supply issue, but it's a global economic and overall economic issue as well. That's a problem. But there's another chart I wanted to show you guys, and this is the growing disparity. Okay. So what you have here, the top 1% of American society now holds as much wealth as the bottom 90%, each at about 32%. So that's a bunch of math, but let me just explain this. Okay. What you see is you can see like this trend. Okay. So you have over here, you have the bottom 90% are owning less and less wealth as a percentage of the overall pie of 100%, right? So just in 1990, it was 40%. Now it's gone down 8% in, just since 1990. And then at the same time that the bottom 90% are losing more and more wealth as an overall percentage, you see the top 1% owning more and more of that 100%. Okay. So the top 1% holds as much wealth as the entire bottom 90%. Well, let's put this in perspective because there's some important trends there that you see. And that is, and this is just like the age of Donald Trump. When you look at it, okay. So let me pull this up here. There's a chart here that's important. So we're heading to a place that we were before the Great Depression and leading up to the stock market crash. And what you have, okay, is a situation where, we're not as bad off as we were in 1929 leading up to the Great Depression, but we're trending there. Okay. So the top 1% of wealth held by the share of U.S. wealth held by the top 1% in 1929 was 50%. All right. That went way down to 22% in 1978. And what you basically had is after World War II, you had what's called the Great Compression, where the middle class grew. Now you see the middle class getting smaller and smaller and contracting more and more. And then you see the top 1% and especially the top 10th of the top 1% who are now, even though we're basically at what's called the Gilded Age, the 1920s, leading up to the stock market crash, 29, Great Depression. Those numbers are identical. So the top 10th, the top 10% of the top 1%, so 0.10, okay? So the 0.10 of the 100% own as much wealth in America now as they did in 1929, right before the stock market crash in the Great Depression. That's really the key number to understand. The trend is also important to understand that the middle class grew after World War II and it reached its peak in 1978, early 80s. And ever since then, it's been skyrocketing down, pushed forward even more by Donald Trump. So let me just go through these graphs real quick. Okay, the top 1% of wealth, the percentage of American wealth held by the top 1%. In 1929, it was 50%. In 1978, it was only 25%. So those are the two numbers I would like, the two sides of the coin, where in 29 it was the highest, and then in 1978 is when the apex, when the middle class was the biggest. The share of wealth held by the top 1%. Well, actually, let's go to let me see here. All right, let's go to the third one because that's actually, the top two are basically similar. They're just in different graphs. The share of U.S. wealth held by the bottom 90%. Now, the peak was in right after World War II, and also its highest, kind of trending into the 1970s. But now, it's a lot lower. So the overall gist that you're getting there is that what you have is a situation where we're getting back to where we were. We're already where we were in the Great Depression, leading right up to that. And what characterizes 1929 and the stock market crash? There was an important event that happened. It's not just the stock market crash. What caused that condition? Okay. The thing that caused the extraordinary wealth inequality leading up to the stock market crash in right before the Great Depression started is lack of regulation, fraudulent behavior by people on Wall Street, and a situation where this was where you had the Securities and Exchange Commission that were created. This is where you had the hold on. Just want to get this right here. Okay. So it's the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. And basically, this is what established the Securities and Exchange Commission. This is what established like I said, it was signed into law by Franklin Roosevelt on June 6, 1934. You have the 1933 Act and you have the 1934 Act, okay? And the 33 Act regulates initial sale of securities to the public, and the 1934 Act regulates the secondary market. So basically, what you had is these landmark pieces of legislation, the 1933 and 1934 acts that governed to stop all of the illegal shit that was happening in the 20s that caused this fucking catastrophe that led to the Great Depression. And I think we forget how bad the Great Depression was. We are looking at, okay, so the peak was 25% unemployment. And in 1929, it was 3.2%, 1930, 9%, 1931, 16%, 1932, 23%, and then 25% in 1933. From 3.2 to 25% in a period of 4 years. And do you want me to put it simply? We have a level of inequality in this country that's like the shit that we saw leading up to the French Revolution. But what is the same thing that's happening today with Donald Trump? Elon Musk. You want to talk about fucking fraud? You want to talk about illegal behavior when it comes to securities? Securities means like any investment. A security is just any investment that depends upon the work of a third party to make the money. All right. It can be anything from a promissory note to a loan, a lot of different things. But point is, when you look at crypto, when you look at World Liberty Financial, when you look at Donald Trump's, doubling of his wealth, tripling of his wealth that we're leading to, when you look at, selling pardons, when you look at the fact that you have people who have committed unbelievable securities fraud, unbelievable other forms of fraud, and drug dealers, kingpins, foreign dictators, all these people being pardoned. And no restitution being ordered, which means the people that committed Medicare fraud and stole from the government, they're keeping the money. And when you have people who committed securities fraud, let's say they sold a bunch of investments, there's tons of people like this that have been pardoned by Trump. Unless that order, that pardon says they have to continue restitution, which they can include in a pardon. You can include different conditions for release. They keep the money. And guess what? The people who were defrauded, they never sued within the statute of limitations, because you have to bring a civil lawsuit within a certain period of time. But they never sued these criminals that Trump is pardoned, because they were getting money through restitution. But now that the conviction's set aside, they're not getting paid. And so when you see people unable to buy homes, and on top of that, you see the economic conditions we have, the wealth inequality that is now the same as it was in 1929 for the top, very, very top echelon of American society, like the top 10% of the top 1%. So like the top 100th, I may have these numbers I don't know if it's called hundredth or not, but it's a 0.10 of the top 1%. The same as it was, when you had like these conglomerates, Standard Oil and all these things leading in 1929. And now it's not just that the rest of America is getting screwed and we don't have an actual democracy. It is that the illegal behavior is the same, even though the laws were put in place in 33 and 34 to try to regulate this stuff. Because if you have a government that is going to let Donald Trump do whatever the fuck he wants, whether illegal or not, when you have a flaw in our constitutional system that allows pardons with literally no oversight and no control whatsoever, then we're heading to the same place. And so we have things trending like they were before the Great Depression. And I think there's this concept that people need to understand called we have this concept, we used to talk about it when you're working at these big law firms, called golden handcuffs, meaning you're in a job that you hate, but they've paid you enough to where you have all these bill obligations and you don't want to leave. Because of that, you're sort of stuck. Well, that's what we kind of have in American society today. Is we have consumerism, which is one of the three evils Martin Luther King talked about in his speeches in the late 1960s. The three evils being militarism, excessive militarism, racism, and extreme materialism. And you have this materialism, you have this consumerism where people are like, it doesn't feel like the Great Depression because, you know, I have $1,000 cell phone. I have all these other consumer products. I have all these things that are meant to placate me. I have social media that they designed to be addictive and is not regulated. And so it seems like you're not like on the street begging. You're not sitting in the fucking Dust Bowl in Nebraska, you know, with your house like in the Great Depression. Like literally like piles of dust would come through like 3-4 feet high. You know, children would die from like inhaling so much dust. I mean, like it doesn't feel like that, but it's still fundamentally unfair to the same level. If you compare like relative to then versus now, it's the same shit. And that's what you have. And the corruption, and it's just things to think about. And another aspect, of course, is the cuts to USAID, which saved 90 million people in 20 years. 90 million people in 20 years were saved by 1% of our budget. And the amount of money they claimed that they saved by cutting USAID is 70% less than the cost of this dumbass fucking war where we accomplished literally nothing and achieved a net negative. I mean, that's how bad this war is. Not only did we not achieve our aims, we made Iran a regional power. We pissed away all these munitions that are going to take 5 years to replace. We cost American lives. And on top of that, this doesn't even take into account the fact that USAID long-term is proven to have saved us money. So around the world, we're hurting the most vulnerable people. And at home, we're fucking over everybody but the top, not even the top 1%, less than the top 1% to benefit them. And they want to do this more with artificial intelligence. When you think about it, artificial intelligence is the greatest crime in like one of the greatest cons. It's a crime. It should be considered a crime too, but it's one of the greatest cons in history because what did they do? They took the AI, they trained all these AI models by stealing pirated music, pirated books. They took all of human creativity. Like when you get on social media, I guarantee, like when you type up blah, 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 and especially when you use AI, it's training on you. Okay. They're stealing from you. That's what's happening. It's in your user agreement. People don't really know what's my user agreement. It's that small type shit that when you sign up for like Facebook or if you're a boomer, but if you sign up for like Instagram, TikTok, whatever, terms of service. And they're going to steal all of human knowledge, use it to create a product that we then become dependent on. And if it fucks up, if it works, they get to keep all the money, make all of us unemployed, and put us on the digital plantation. Okay, like slaves. And I don't mean to be racially insensitive to that, but that's literally what they want to do. Okay, and it's the same kind of that mentality that they want to do. They want to put all of us on there, where it is the slaves become not people necessarily that are minorities, but people that are just not in that top 1% who are don't have access to the government, don't have access to bribing Donald Trump, and if it fails, so if it succeeds, we're all fucked, and they're not going to pay shit for all the people that they make unemployed. They're not going to replace their income. You know who's going to pay for that? The victims. Us. It's going to be added to the government debt. It's going to be a bailout. And if it fails, what happens? They get a bailout, just like the big banks did, just like the automakers did during the financial crisis. The same banks that are responsible for the financial crisis in large part. And it's coming. So what we see now in these overall economic conditions and this housing bill, you see like the iceberg tip. Okay. We see that like Trump's own press secretary said it's such a great law that he totally agrees with, and he pretends it's all his idea. And then like 8 hours later, he's like, no, fuck you. I don't care. If you don't pass this law, the Save America Act that allows me to like steal the elections, or allows Republicans to steal elections and disenfranchise voters, especially minority and disabled people, then, and the elderly, then you know what? Screw your housing. And that's the tip of the iceberg. And there's all this inequality. There's all this stuff in place. And there's all these things that we're driving off a cliff towards with AI and everything else. So it's just like, there's what you see and there's all this other stuff. I just wanted to point that out because I think that's super important. here's another thing. This guy's got a lot of good graphs. So let's kind of like just that's the housing crisis. That in a nutshell, that's talking about, you know, how it's overall economic conditions, how Trump only cares about himself, how this is a lens into all of the things that Trump wants to do, and what's heading down the pipeline right now, the turnpike, if you will. Yeah, perfect storm, exactly. Yeah, they do. They want to like turn knowledge that they stole. I mean, like when I say stole, they like took Facebook is facing a class action from publishers and authors because they stole it. Okay. They use pirated books to train their AI models. That's how fucking cheap they are. Mark Zuckerberg can't pay, can't buy a book. Piece of shit. Anyways. And you look at, here we got Jared Kushner's net worth, 2009 through 2026. So he goes from 324 million. By the way, how do you get that wealth? From his dad, who's a slumlord. His dad is a scumbag. His dad hired a fucking prostitute to try and seduce his brother-in-law and got caught for it and went to prison. Okay? He's a federal penitentiary fucking inmate. He was for years with a prisoner number. Let's just be clear about that. So that's where he got it, slumlord stuff, taking advantage of people. And then, so we got 324 million early 2017. Then he gets $2 billion from the Saudis. Then it goes from 324 million to 900 million. And that growth would not have happened. It would not have tripled like that pretty much, but for him being married to Donald Trump's daughter. We know what happened in Albania recently. They tried to like take over an entire island. Trump reelected, 900 million. And it you're looking at less than about a year and a half in office. It's 100 million has gone up. And this guy has no security clearance. He's involved in the Iran deal. He's overseeing shit. Nobody knows what his financial interests are. He's done no financial disclosures whatsoever. I don't believe Witkoff has either. This would be pure insanity, if this was a Democrat. Also the thing with the tariffs, I really am of the mind in a lot of ways that, God, you can make a plausible argument that would, it's conspiracy theory in a way, but it's plausible and rational that Trump started the war with Iran and he did the tariffs just to make money for himself, just to create fucking chaos that he could use insider trading on to buy the dips, to buy the market movement. Of all the dumbass theories out there, they talk about Ukrainian biolabs. When this shit here, like with the way that the market, the amount of money that's been made by insiders from the movement from the tariffs, from his announcements, like there's all this movement that happens in the market right before he announces something in the Iran war, or right before he announces something, he announced like a tariff being lifted or whatever before the Supreme Court said it was illegal, which is funny because all these people made all this money. There's so much money that was made by insiders over tariffs that were just blatantly fucking illegal. Like everybody with a brain knew they were illegal the entire time. It was all bullshit. Bullshit upon bullshit. Okay. That's the economy as it relates to housing in a nutshell. And like I said, I used to do a lot of litigation for some of the largest banks during like the height of during the financial crisis and thereafter. And like the amount of like fucking carnage and the amount of the things I saw were just like really, really, sad, but you come to realize like what homes mean to people. And not just like financially, but emotionally. And we're seeing this again kind of stuff, but in a much worse way. And so let's go to some news that's like really important. We have, this general guy, kind of shifting to Iran war, national security stuff. That's Iran. Sorry, Ukraine or Crimea. All right, so that's actually Moscow. Let's just see. Hold on, how this. Let's just see like how Trump pulled the rug out from these Republicans on the housing bill today. It was getting ready to get signed.
Let's play out. Let's show the American people what legislating looks like. Let's show the American people how you bring together and do something on a bicameral basis. And
Oh,
we
yeah?
did that. And we did that
Oh, yeah?
in conjunction with President Trump and his priorities, which are reducing regulation, enhancing community banks. And one of his goals
that's his priority. Just listen. He's sitting there fucking talking about the things. Oh, Donald Trump's priorities. Donald Trump this. Donald Trump that. Dot 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 dot. And then watch this fucking guy learn.
announced in the State of the Union was he doesn't want a mom and a dad trying to buy that first home to find out that they were outbid for cash by some institutional investor at some big company off in New York or somewhere.
And then, so they're having this press conference. Then the news, maybe they were previously told by staffers in the midst of this thing, or maybe these lawmakers as well were hearing for the first time when they were asked some of these questions by reporters. But let's see Speaker Mike Johnson responding to the very late-breaking news that the president is pulling the plug on this whole thing.
In the process of this press conference, President Trump announced that he is canceling the bill signing for the housing bill that you all were just talking about. He said he's canceling it until the SAVE Act is passed, and he called this housing bill, which passed with such...
I mean, like they're sitting there. Hold on. Okay, listen to this.
And right when I'm walking through, there's a staffer going, "Does this look good? Like, does it look washed out on camera?"
So this is from the Bulwark, and this is their Capitol Hill reporter talking about, like, he's like walking through one of the buildings around the Capitol, and like they had this his signing fucking thing, the bill signing like banquet thing set up, and literally like right when that's happening, Trump is like, I'm not signing this today. Or like, we're not doing this. So
Camera. They're
literally setting up the tables and shit.
ready to begin this thing as soon as Trump, made his way across the city to the Capitol. And I cross through, I go down to the Senate basement, and we find out that he's canceled it through Truth Social, which he loves to do. And right when that happens, it's right as a Senate vote starting to happen. So all of them start coming through. So they learn from us that this thing is canceled. In addition to that, people had already started showing up. So you can chalk this up to bad staff work, not informing their boss that, anything can happen when the president posts something on his social media account, which none of them actively use themselves.
Okay, so I mean, just like literally, what the doesn't give a shit. Okay, but we need to talk about this though. This is C.D. Donahue, who I believe, if I'm remembering right, is the Okay, so C.D. Donahue. This current position was head of U.S. forces in the United States, in Europe and Africa, which means dealing with, the Russian threat to Europe and our NATO allies, which they are right on the border of. Romania and Poland have both had Russian drones fly into their countries and crash. There has been expressed threats by Russia, by Dmitry Medvedev, the drunk alcoholic, idiot, who's basically like Putin's crazy mouthpiece in the Russian government, threatening other Baltic states as well. And, Lithuania, things like that. And C.D. Donahue is a legend. He's universally respected. This is a guy who was basically forced into retirement by Pete Hegseth. And we'll talk about his background here in a second. But what is key to understand about him is, number one, he told the truth when he was asked about, do you think wokeness is hurting our military? He's like, no, I have no idea what the hell that even means. I don't care what people think or believe. If they're a good fighter, then fuck it. They can work. They can, they'll fight with me. Get that shit out of here. He was like the anti-culture war person. Okay. He thinks, but you know why? Because he knows that shit doesn't matter. All right. The people who are like in the military who are like, I don't want to take a flu vaccine. Okay. Those people are bad fighters. Those people are not, don't have the lethality. They're idiots. You see it in Ukraine. I mean, there's soldiers fighting in Ukraine, women in combat, transgender, people from literally of like every fucking religion on the planet, including, I mean, and when I say every religion, I mean every religion. All right. I mean, like lots of Hindus, okay, Catholics, Christian, Protestant Christians, Muslims, and from literally like I think there are like over 100 countries represented right now in the Ukrainian military. And guess what? None of that shit that makes these people different means a fucking thing as far as it doesn't make any of them less able to fight. Look at their performance. And he also helped Ukraine prepare for the Russian invasion. And those two things, someone who doesn't care about culture wars, it does not follow the Pete Hegseth line, someone who is not going to be discriminatory against, the promotion of, black officers, Hispanics, women, someone who has impeccable ethics and would stand up to Pete Hegseth, someone who helped Ukraine and recognizes that Russia's the actual threat. And the most critical thing, if you're a soldier, you're in the military right now in the United States, the guy that understands better than any person at his senior rank or higher, I believe he's a 4-star now, but at least a 3-star, how modern warfare is changing, how drones are changing warfare, the tactics being used by Ukraine, the way that, we see this mid-range drone strike program, taking out logistics for the Russians, the way that drones are incorporated into infantry assaults now, all of this stuff, he knows better than anybody. And that knowledge cannot be transitioned or acquired anywhere else, which means as modern warfare is changing, they are firing the person effectively who understands modern warfare better than anybody at his level. And on top of that, consider the fact, in addition to this, that the Army is effectively out of money and they're not doing training right now. Their training budget, they're underwater on that. And so the lack of training on drones that's happening, and then you have this guy that they're firing, it means they don't give a shit. That's going to cause more Americans to die in a future war. It's just a fact. It's just math. All right. And let's talk about his background. Okay. He was widely seen as one of the Army's rising stars, a legendary Delta Force leader who was considered a top candidate for Army Chief of Staff or even chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He was also commander of the Ranger regiments, special operations commander as well. He served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, climbing through the ranks during 2 decades of counterterrorism wars. He took a top role in Europe and Pentagon as the Pentagon adapted lessons from Ukraine and other modern battlefields. His departure continues the exit of a generation of combat-tested leaders at a time when Hegseth is reshaping the military senior ranks under less generals, more GIs. It just means it's just bullshit. Pete Hegseth I think he was like a fucking major, but he never got his Ranger tab. He was also removed from a security detail in Washington, D.C. because of his racist white supremacist tattoos. Didn't distinguish himself at all. Is a fucking idiot, an absolute idiot, and the most insecure person in the entire U.S. government, period. It's like painful to watch him. So this guy, it's the same thing you saw when the African-American Air Force Joint Chiefs of Staff, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, was let go earlier in Trump's tenure, and his name's escaping me right now, but you saw universal condemnation from veterans, thousands of comments on social media posts about how much this guy's respected, how awesome he is. And let's just look at one of these real quick, a couple of these, all right? Because I think it's important. Let me pull this up.
We're the cast of Jackass Best and Last. Get your tickets now for our new movie, only in theaters.
Okay, so,
welcome to our last film.
Oh my God, it's so annoying. Okay, so let's look at this. Hold on. In my humble opinion, CD is the best combat leader of my generation. Rare combination of elite special operator who also understands the changing character of war and has been ahead of the rest of the army and pushing innovation for some time. This really hurts. Okay, another example.
Sink her away and try and lay off the.
Okay, so let me see here. Okay, there was another one. It was about how he had called in an airstrike, like. But I'll have to find that for tomorrow. But yeah, and so the fuck is this idiot? Not even a real person. Okay, so okay, here it is. The most impressive thing I saw in combat was while taking a knee next to Major Donahue when he called in, and it's back when he was a major. When he called it an AC-130 to destroy a threat while landing a medevac helicopter in the line of fire. Rare combination of elite special operator and intellectual. And, I mean, these are just like... Mike Nelson is former special operator. Pretty, great author. He's got a really good podcast too. Fucking outrageous. I mean, this is pretty consistent with what you see. And this is a guy, I mean, the head of Delta Force, commanded Delta Force, everything. I mean, this is like, you couldn't get a better resume for what we need right now. And again, removing this guy who has a connection to Ukraine and a connection and is respected to, our NATO allies who would stand up to Hegseth ethically, it benefits Russia. This is what Russia wants. What Russia can't achieve on its own, what it can't use Havana syndrome to try to remove people now, it could just rely upon Donald Trump. It can just rely upon Pete Hegseth. That's who it helps. The greatest terrorist regime in the world. So, yeah, I mean, that's where we're at with that. I mean, there's obviously no reason given for what happened, why they did this. None. Looking at the Iran war, I mean, it's a fucking debacle. Oh, I mean, okay, this is the person who's firing people. The U.S. military has quietly reinstated mandatory flu shots after an outbreak at a U.S. Air Force base affected at least 222 recruits, with 4 hospitalized. This idiot. And let me just show you. You want to see somebody from Hegseth's office replying to me and how I shit in his mouth? Here you go. And yeah, I said it like that because it's exactly what happened. Okay. So what you have, Trump, just to show you the kind of idiots that are working in Hegseth's office. Okay. So yesterday I tweeted that, listen, if you join the military and you're afraid of a fucking flu shot, which a lot of these culture warriors in Hegseth's office and these idiots there's idiots in every organization. There's definitely idiots in the U.S. military who are against flu shots. If you join the military and you're scared of the same shot that my kids have been getting since they were fucking 2-3 years old, my daughters, okay, you're a massive fucking pussy and you don't belong anywhere near a battlefield. All right. And I didn't even use the word that I just used. Okay. And you had all these people complaining, all bots, pretty much, cowards who would not put their face or their actual name on the account.
So my wife and I just
let me just show you what someone in Hegseth's own office actually said. Okay. So we have this dipshit named Infantry Dort. Oh, by the way, I was quote tweeting a study that says from the Journal of American Medical Association that's saying that actually COVID shots and other vaccines reduce, the incidence of heart issues. And that's the thing that these people who are anti-vaccine and anti-flu shot always try to say is that, oh, they make you more likely to have a heart attack. I'm like, nope, here's the evidence. So did this piece of shit attack the evidence? Nope. This is what this fucker said. I said, if you're in the military and you refuse the COVID or flu vaccine, you're a giant freaking wimp who I'd never wanted to go into combat with. Soldiers shouldn't be afraid of vaccines that kids take millions of times a year, grow a spine. And infantry Dort, because he's a coward, he won't use his actual name, says, well, since you never went into combat with the American military, in all caps, denigrating the Ukrainian military, which I did go into combat with, I guess it's no loss to us. Have fun with your 13 COVID booster, hysterical bitch. And first of all, if infantry Dort is watching this, I'll meet you anywhere, anytime. And you can say that to my face, but he won't. Okay. The he's a fucking wimp. All right. So he's denigrating. He's here talking about how bad COVID boosters are. And my response, I think pretty appropriately said, you just lost to Iran. Should have taken that Ukrainian help. Had you done that rather than posting culture war bullshit online all day, 6 Americans might still be alive. What I mean is the Americans who were killed in Kuwait by that Shahed drone, the same ones that the Ukrainians have faced 50,000 of, they had no overhead cover. They had no overhead protection. They didn't have any of the help in tactics and technology that Zelensky tried to give to Trump and our military last year. In light of the above, you're in no place to lecture me with Putin's balls in your mouth. So, yeah. So, yeah. And then there were some bots that came out complaining, and it was like, and this is the thing, like, I mean, like, this is so pathetic. It's some guy in Hexa's office who like says something stupid, and then it's like some bot account, Spartacus, where the fuck is that? And it's like, oh, you sank his battleship. And I mean, like, you're soothed by a fucking, you know. So, yeah, I mean, it's just so funny. How pathetic. But these are the kinds of people that work for Hegseth. These are the kind of people fighting, you know, firing real generals. All right. Anyways, it's just a window into what Hegseth is about. Alex Plitzos, who's another, like, he's on MSNBC. He's a really awesome commentator on military stuff. He's a veteran too. Chris Donahue is one of the finest warriors and battlefield commanders of our generation. I mean, it's just one thing after. Yeah, he's on MSNBC. People need to understand the mentality of all these people. So, all right. I mean, what else we got? With the Iran and the negotiations, they continue. It's kind of a disaster. It's kind of a mess. Nothing really new has happened today. So, when you're looking at this, you know, it's just, it may end up being continuing to be with the Iran war that the negotiations go back and forth and Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, overall, the fact of the matter is Americans died, Iranians died, including 180 school children. To do what? Make Iran a more powerful country, to give it $300 billion. And JD Vance is just sitting there. The best he can do is just lie about it and let Qatar dictate our foreign policy. So that's where you're at. Okay, so I don't know. Here's another story about this C.D. Donahue. I remember some of the field grade officers talking about awards about, you know, after a mission. I'll paraphrase, but essentially, this just shows you like what a badass this guy was. There were some grumblings about Bronze Star medals, like they weren't getting the medals they thought they should get. Reportedly, when it was brought to C.D. Donahue's attention, he said, the men that stormed the beaches at Normandy got Bronze Stars, and then he walked away. That's the guy they're calling fucking woke, and he's a fucking legend. You know, and just
Trump's
again,
refusing to sign the housing bill.
Another one, you know, Secretary Hegseth fires a 4-star U.S. general. This is Barry McCaffrey. Donahue, clearly the most extraordinary combat leader in a generation. Brilliant, fearless, bold, integrity, incredible leader. Barry McCaffrey's also a legend. You know, everybody that is pissed off about this is somebody with a great background who is knowledgeable and respected in the military community. And everybody who's in favor of this firing is a scumbag, a coward, or 99% of the time, it's like a fucking bot account. That's all they can do. That's all they got. And then, okay, so since that is frustrating, let's talk about something good. These are the gas lines. Look at that. In Russia. And they have rationing happening all across the country right now. Gas is like fucking $7.50 a gallon. And they don't make any money anyways. Because they treat the people like shit. It's a nation of gangsters and slaves. It's fucking awesome. There's another one. It's all over the place. Look at this. I fucking love it. They need to suffer and they need to feel it. Yep. And then you have... It's everywhere. It's so fucking great. All these people sat around and didn't give a shit when Putin was invading Ukraine. They didn't give a shit when he was kidnapping children. They didn't give a shit when they were hunting people like fucking animals with a human safari with explosive drones, blowing up grandmothers, you know, fucking the elderly, kids, buses in Kherson, starving people to death, torturing them, using, literally like raping kids in front of their parents, all, by the thousands. They didn't give a shit about that, Now, when it's their inconvenience, maybe they will care. Maybe they won't put two and two together. It's all over the fucking country. And you know what else happened today? This Moscow refinery, it's offline until 2027 now. That's how bad they fucked it up. So this is where people in Moscow and St. Petersburg are like the centers of power in Russia. Everything else is with some shithole without a toilet and a muddy road. It's not even an exaggeration. And so now they're going to have to pay for gas. Like their gas is going to go way up. They're going to have the gas lines in those areas. Hopefully it creates conditions for a coup. We'll see. I don't know. They're really stupid people. So this is Crimea. This is by the Kerch Bridge. I mean, they're systematically fucking shit up all over the country. This is awesome. So we've got more. So these are drones hitting drones right here. These launchers basically. This is the same drone they're using to launch. And again, I mean, at Hex done a fucking job. These are the same drones that we're hitting right here. That Ukraine. I say we. I mean Ukraine. The same ones that killed Americans in Kuwait.
Друзья, значит, нахожусь на трассе М4.
More and more Russians are complaining and even crying over the lack of gasoline.
В одну машину не более 30 литров заливают. Ну, понятно, заливать в канистры нельзя. Я и не собирался...
Okay, so 30 liters, how much is that? Because they're rationing... That's 8 gallons. That's all you can fill up with, I believe, every week.
На канистры заливать. Хотел заправить полный бак. Нет, невозможно. Только 30 литров за одну заправку. Вроде очередь такая небольшая, приемлемая, но тем не менее, видите, появились ограничения.
Oh, she's crying. Oh, this is fucking... Okay, I love this. Okay, can we just, like, again, like, the fucking mass rape, war crimes, kidnappings of children, bombing fucking hospitals, nursing homes, fucking children's cancer facilities, all right? And what is this fucking woman? What is it? What the fuck is she complaining about? My mental state is a total mess. God, where the fuck is all this heading? Ain't nobody trying to kill you. Why is my life such a mess? What the fuck is going on? Blyat. Oh. Oh, poor you. You fucking unreflective, stupid bitch. Isn't it extraordinary? There's a war going on. You're committing genocide. What the fuck did you expect was going to happen? How much longer are they going to torment us? Who is they? Unbelievable. People ask about Russians. I tell people about Russians and what they're about. They're like, well, they can't all be like that. Like there's good people and bad people in every country. There's a way more in Russia. This is like 85% support for this genocidal war. When will this end? Violin and shit.
Я в ахуе. Ебанулись, что ли?
Цена как в Турции.
100 рублей за литр. Блядь, подожди, я пойду позвоню. На 2000 рублей это капля в море у него.
2,000 rubles. I mean, look at these people.
Смотрите, Роснефть. Очередей почти нет.
They care about their gas. They don't care about people dying.
Заправились за 5 минут.
Yeah.
Литр бензина 95-го стоит 140 рублей. Иркутск. 23 июня. Угу. Серьезно, 140 рублей 95-й, 135 92-й. Ну, зато очередей нет.
Send the Ukrainian guy to bomb. Yeah, I can't watch this for too long on TikTok. So get mad. But this is the aftermath of strikes on Crimea. The oil and gas storage there. That's what those tanks are. So, again, systematically making for these people. There's literally people who've moved in. The Russians invaded illegally, and they're like I've had people like text me about in Mariupol or other places that are occupied. Like, what the fuck? They're selling my apartment right now. They're selling my house to some Russian. And like, there's other people living there. Do you know what that's like? To see someone invade your country and then live in your fucking home, and it's advertised online by some fucking shitbag Russian realtor, whatever it may be. Incredible. Yeah. This is the same refinery in 2020. I mean, it's.
В Москве нет.
Anyways.
Это вот такая вот очередь
I love this.
на Лукойльскую заправку после моста. И прикол в том, что сейчас дают только по 30 литров в бак. Уже нету возможности набрать канистры. Хотя сегодня сказали, что разрешают через мост провозить больше 100 литров. Но здесь не заправить.
Так, возвращаемся назад. Только что здесь проезжали.
Okay, so this is the road.
Было спокойно.
There's a highway that goes through Mariupol, from Russia to Mariupol, and then this is the main supply route through the occupied parts of Ukraine, and then down into Crimea. Okay, and it's like a fucking highway of death. Every fuel truck's being hit. Sometimes it's fun to watch these people cuss. The things that Russians are good at is dying, genocide, and cussing. Nothing else. You think I'm exaggerating? Tell me one fucking product that Russia's known for. Samsung, that comes from South Korea. What about Japan? Honda, Toyota. Germany, BMW. Siemens, whatever. Fucking Bosch dishwashers. What comes from Russia? Nothing. Fucking vodka.
Ага, просто вспыхнул, да.
Yep.
Мы же не на войне едем, а так.
It's fucking great. Oh, they're getting in a fight over over a gas spot. What the fuck is he kicking that guy for? What are you, Bruce Lee and shit? These guys want to fight. They should probably go to the front. I know where they can go. There's a fucking trench with your name on it. He tries to kick him upside the head. What are you doing, dude? Pathetic. Oh. So this is in conjunction with people in the occupied territories of Crimea. The resistance movement. There's a railway bridge. Everything. They're getting cut off. Fucking great. Obviously, these are all valid military targets on the Geneva Convention because they transport war material and things that support the war directly. It's crazy to see, like, every single attack you see from Ukraine is something that is a clear military target, and then Russia's like blowing up fucking troops. Okay. Yeah, they're just, and this is just more than like freaking out and stuff. Oh, this is a good thing. You gotta see this. We'll do the last thing here. Here, you gotta see this. These fucking trucks are getting lit up. But people may not be aware, like, you don't understand these drones, like the video they're taking is as they fly into the targets, and then they blow up. So like when you see it like a camera going towards something, it's about to get exploded. Boom. These are military vehicles, also valid targets. God. Fucking better than porn. Amazing.
Короче, ой-ой-ой, присандолило неплохо, хлопцы. Мост полностью разрушен.
You want to see what the aftermath of a strike looks like?
Мост полностью.
It's just like shit all over the place.
От начала вот такая дырка.
Again, bridges, another valid target. It's just, it's amazing. This is what Russians do to every single place that they occupy. Destroy it, turn it into Aleppo. Churches blown up, burned down. Homes. Residential stuff. All the civilian things. Just fucking, they flatten everything. Barbarians. Oh my God, they're fucking praying for gas. All right. Anyways, okay. That's all I got for today. It's good seeing you guys. Sorry, it was kind of like there's a lot of stuff going on. I hope I explained it right. Take care. Love you all. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys.